a league obsessed with youth and velocity, the name Aaron Rodgers still carries the kind of weight that makes defenses adjust. Commentators pause and fans whisper, he's not done yet. At 42, playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers on a one-year contract, Rodgers' path back to the playoffs this year was nothing short of a saga filled with doubt, resilience, reinvention, and moments only a handful of people truly understood. This is not just another quarterback story. This is a return to relevance. A wild ride, in the words of one of the NFL's most respected insiders, Albert Breer. 2 seasons ago, Rodgers was in New York, a Jets quarterback with a destiny that never fully materialized. Injuries, organizational upheavals, and fits of inconsistency turned what was supposed to be a bold new chapter into a cautionary footnote. Analysts questioned if Rodgers still had the arm strength. Fans wondered if the greatest improviser of his generation had somehow lost his edge. Every observer whispered the same fear. Maybe he's finished. But deep inside league circles, Breer learned that Rodgers himself wasn't done philosophizing about the game, about his story. Rodgers wasn't just thinking about more years in the league. He was obsessed with the quality of those years. Not flash but impact, not narrative but relevance. When Rodgers signed with the Steelers, it wasn't a headline-grabbing blockbuster move. It was a subtle shift. A wise veteran entering a franchise that prizes structure, discipline, and clarity. Many thought Rodgers would bolt for a spotlight again. Instead, he walked into Pittsburgh like a man with something to prove to. One person only, himself. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin, one of the most respected leaders in the league, didn't just bring Rodgers aboard for his arm. He brought him in for his brain. The kind that turns late-game pressure into poetry. Rodgers may have come to Pittsburgh with fewer guarantees than in years past, but he also came with a quiet certainty. He still knew how to win. The early weeks of the season were a litmus test, not just for Rodgers, but for everyone around him. The Steelers had talent, but they were still a team in transition. Every quarterback, even one with 4 MVP awards, needed time to mold identity with new receivers, new linemen, new patterns. Rodgers didn't retreat from the noise. He embraced the meetings, the grind of film study, the preparation that early in the season often feels monotonous. Instead of ignoring the questions about his age, his arm strength, his future, he faced them head-on the practice field, on the sideline, and in the huddle. The offense didn't explode immediately, but it began to cohere. Rodgers started to look less like an aging legend and more like a mastermind reshaping his craft for the present. The Steelers began to believe. And that belief matters in the NFL, sometimes more than talent itself. Rodgers' playoff bid didn't swing on a single game. It swung on a mindset shift, where before he might have tried to force big plays, Rodgers began to orchestrate sustained drives. Where pressure once led to hesitation, it now led to creativity. Rodgers found a rhythm with his receivers, discovered trust in his offensive line, and admitted publicly that he was figuring things out as he went. Not with arrogance, but with humility. These mid-season evolutions didn't make headlines at first, but insiders like Albert Breer saw them. He watched how Rodgers walked the halls after tough losses and tough practices alike, returning again and again to the same thought. What do we have to do tomorrow to be better? That relentless curiosity is what separates the good from the legendary. Football often tells its finest stories in January, and for Rodgers, Week 18 was destined to be dramatic. In a game that echoed with playoff stakes and career implications, Rodgers and the Steelers found themselves in a classic nail-biter against the Ravens. It wasn't just a game, it was a crossroads for Rodgers, a defining moment that would silence doubters or prove the critics right. Rodgers was a symphony of emotion, relief, determination, frustration, felt in every throw, every audible, every moment on the sideline. When the final whistle blew and the Steelers clinched a playoff berth with a 26-24 victory, Rodgers' reaction wasn't muted. It was deep, almost philosophical. It was gratitude. Gratitude for the journey, the pressure, the doubts, and the triumph. Playoffs aren't just destinations. They are statements. For Rodgers, this wasn't merely a return to postseason football. It was validation that in a league that relentlessly markets tomorrow's stars, yesterday's legends can still shape today's reality. Rodgers now stands at a crossroads. He said he's undecided about playing beyond the 2025 season, unsure whether this chapter ends with a final bow or extends into a new narrative. Part of him wants to retire as a Packer, the team that made him a star. And part of him wants to write one last chapter with the Steelers. The uncertainty itself adds richness to a career already overflowing with it. What's clear, and what Breer's reporting underlines, is that Rodgers' journey back to the playoffs wasn't a fluke or a nostalgic celebration. It was earned through adaptation, through grit, through relentless pursuit of what football still means to him. This ride wasn't just athletic. It was philosophical. Aaron Rodgers' wild ride back to the NFL playoffs reminds us that greatness is not a straight line. It's a loop, a circle, a comeback. It's not just about the throws you make. It's about the doubts you outgrow and the legacy you choose to shape, on your own terms. This season didn't rewrite Rodgers' story. It expanded it. And as Rodgers looks ahead, whether it's another playoff game, another year, or a final curtain call, one thing is undeniable. He didn't just return to the NFL playoffs. He reminded the football world why his ride, wild as it's been, is worth watching until the very last whistle.